Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Welcome if you're new. My name is Pluto and I'm an Australian-based lawyer. For today's video, we're going to be looking at the defense's rebuttal in the Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard defamation trial in Virginia, followed by a brief explanation of what to expect in closing statements, what they are, what their purpose is, and finally, I was actually just watching the lawyers and the judge go through the jury instructions, so I have a few pertinent points to share with you. I will disclose that I'm not finished watching that portion, but in terms of specific areas that I've received questions on regarding the counterclaim, I can shed some light as to what the jury instructions are in relation to that. This week in its entirety was rebuttal week, so if you haven't seen part 1 of my video on the rebuttals, specifically the plaintiff's rebuttals, please do check it out. It will be linked in a pinned comment and probably also in the description box. So I will be focusing a lot more on when Amber took the stand for her direct and her cross-examination by Camille, who once again was on fire and I think really hammered her points home. But very briefly, and for the sake of completion, I do want to mention that the plaintiff had one more rebuttal witness, Dr. Richard Gilbert, who is an orthopedic surgeon who specializes in hands and upper extremities. Now, he is not Johnny's surgeon, but his purpose was to rebut the orthopedic surgeon introduced by the defense, who claimed that Johnny's injury was a crush injury. In part 1 of the rebuttals, I did say that the plastic surgeon was there to rebut the orthopedic surgeon. That was a mistake. He was only there to rebut Whitney and Amber's allegations of what happened during the staircase incident in March of 2015, or rather than rebut, to make it a lot less likely that Johnny did what Amber and Whitney alleged he did. In essence, Dr. Gilbert confirmed that based on the materials that he reviewed, Johnny's injury was indeed consistent with Johnny's description of how he sustained that injury. So it was an injury of velocity, and the clean edges of the wound indicate laceration by a sharp object, being glass in this instance. A computer forensics investigator by the name of Julian Ackert was also called to the stand to rebut Mr. Neumeister, who was the equivalent expert for Johnny's side. Honestly, all you have to know with this expert is that he did nothing for Amber's side. I mean, the most he said was the software Amber used, Photos 3, is not just for editing, but also for saving photos and sorting through photos and organizing them, and that photos can have different versions of different sizes, even by simply emailing them and selecting the size that you want the photo to be sent as. He did say that he authenticated the photos that Mr. Neumeister looked at as originals, which Mr. Neumeister said that they were not, but he otherwise could not opine on the authenticity of all of the other photos that Amber's side has submitted as evidence. I think it is worth mentioning that Mr. Dennison in cross-exam brought up the 2 photos that are absolutely identical without a shred of doubt, but that Amber maintains are different photos. And he showed the jury that the photos had an identical name, date, and timestamp, so to the very second. And yet they were admitted as 2 separate exhibits, 712 and 713. Dawn Hughes was called back to justify her methods and explain to the jury why Dr. Curry's criticism of her methods was invalid. But in cross-exam, Dennison came back, and again, I think he did a great job of diminishing from her credibility and casting doubt on her methods. He brought up demonstratives, exhibits of the forms that she used and how things were basically not done according to protocol. And now we get to Amber Heard. This time her anger was exceedingly visible. She didn't even try to hide it. In her direct examination, she stated to the jury that she has been harassed and threatened and ridiculed on a daily basis, and that it was entirely Johnny's fault. She made it a point to tell the jury that she has not been laughing, smiling, snickering, or making snide jokes throughout the trial, which is quite odd to say because there is footage of her doing just that. She complained that people mock her testimony, the testimony that she gave in Virginia, which makes me think that she may have outed herself in terms of monitoring social media and seeing what people are saying about her, which she is not allowed to do. She's not even allowed to discuss her testimony or the case with anyone else, for that matter. And she made it very clear that none of this is her fault, she doesn't deserve any of this, and that she just wants her voice back. She wants to be able to exercise her right as an American to speak her truth and tell her story. Interestingly, this gives us a hint of what we can expect if she wins. She's probably not going to stop, which is ironic because she keeps saying that all she wants is for Johnny to leave her alone so that she can move on with her life. I moved Leo's chair to the side so you can see him and his little bow tie. For cross-exam, Camille went in hard from the get-go. And I will tell you that Camille started getting quite heated and frustrated very early on because Amber's level of combativeness and snarkiness was at an all-time high. If we thought that she was angry during her initial cross-exam, this was something else. She rolled her eyes, she wouldn't let Camille finish her questions, she would speak over Camille's objections to the point where the judge had to tell her to stop. Now, to be fair, Johnny would do the same with Rottenborn. I'm not going to just single out Amber for doing that. The crazy thing is, she basically accused everyone, including Kate Moss, a supermodel who has been a supermodel for longer than I've been alive, of coming out of the woodwork suddenly just to get their 15 minutes of fame. She accused Mr. Morgan Knight of this, and in fact, decided to combat his testimony, and this is the previous owner of the Hicksville trailer park, by the way. She decided to combat his testimony by saying that he wasn't even there. So she is insinuating he's a paid actor, I suppose, because she made it very clear that she did not recognize him, she had never seen him before, and that he most certainly wasn't there. He just wanted to be a part of the Johnny Depp show, much like Kate Moss, I suppose. Camille asked her, so are you saying he lied? Are you saying he committed perjury here under oath? And while Amber refused to say so, it's fairly obvious that that's exactly what she was insinuating. The same happened with Mr. Morgan Tremaine. She absolutely denied any involvement, any agreements, any leaking of anything to TMZ. Camille brought up the fact that the copyright process for ownership of the video was completed within 15 minutes, which according to Mr. Tremaine, essentially means that the original copyright owner transferred ownership rights. That's the only way it can happen that fast. And Amber still vehemently denied any involvement and claims to have no idea who leaked that video. She did try to insinuate that Johnny's team did it, but Camille cut her off. Someone on Twitter asked me what I would introduce in rebuttal if I were in the courtroom, and this was a couple of weeks ago, and I said, first off, the photos from the 28th of May 2016 clearly depicting a makeup-free Amber Heard one day after getting her TRO with the magical bruise missing. And that's exactly what they did. I was waiting for them to do this. The best part was, these photos included Raquel Pennington and Josh Drew, who both testified on behalf of Amber. So the jury saw these two in the photograph with Amber, and if they are convinced, as the rest of us are, that she is entirely makeup-free in this photo, then it's going to cast immense doubt in the minds of the jury that Raquel and Josh were being honest and that they weren't in on it. Amber denied that this was taken on the 28th of May. She asked for proof that this was taken on that day. And she also stated that if it was taken on that day, she would be wearing makeup. She really insisted that she is a public figure who would never be seen without makeup. Just Google Amber Heard without makeup, by the way. You will get hit after hit after hit. I am a female. I know exactly what females look like without makeup. And she goes out routinely, or at least used to go out routinely, I don't know about right now, without makeup. Look at the pinkish tinge to her skin. If you had any concealer, any tint, any foundation, that pinkish tint wouldn't come through. The color isn't even uniform on her face. There are females in the jury, obviously, and I'm hoping that it will be obvious to them as well. Camille also brought up how identical photographs were submitted into evidence with different exhibit numbers pertaining to two separate incidents, the 15th of December 2015 and the 21st of May 2016. Two identical photos of the wine bottle and the spillage. And when she asked her, which one is it? Amber's response was, I don't know. I've been through so much trauma for 5 years. You can't expect me to remember. You're gonna have to show me the metadata. And her attitude oozing out at that time did not do her any favors. She can look at the jury all she likes. Someone must have instructed her that making eye contact with the jury makes her more credible. Jodi Arias did the same thing, and she's rotting behind bars for the rest of her life. So it's not a fail-proof strategy to undertake. Did I mention that she basically insinuated Kate Moss was here for her 15 minutes? It's funny because I made a joke about this on social media a day before it happened, and then when it actually happened, it still blows your mind, even though you somehow anticipated it, because that was their go-to. Elaine was just accusing everyone of wanting their 15 minutes of fame. But about Kate Moss, when Camille challenged her with Kate Moss's testimony, Amber said, "It doesn't matter what Kate Moss says. What matters is, in my mind, at that time, I believed the story, I believed the rumor, and I believed that Johnny was going to push my sister down the stairs." Now, I've been linking Jennifer Howell's declaration in most of my recent videos because I covered it extensively 2 years ago. And I also read out a very relevant excerpt on the podcast 61. But in summary, Jennifer Howell stated that Amber was going to push her own sister down the stairs, not Johnny. And in fact, Whitney was terrified that Amber would really harm Johnny, even in a permanent way. So in case you were wondering and you haven't watched my older video, that's what the rebuttal is. The entire scenario has once again been flipped around to put Johnny in Amber's shoes and Amber in Johnny's shoes. So this is making the rounds. It's very topical. She admitted that she wrote the op-ed because of all this support that Johnny has, because of how people are drawn to him and would do anything because of his power, and they just want to earn his favor. Many people are going, aha, that's it, we caught her. She admitted that it's about Johnny Depp. Yes, on the one hand, one of the elements of defamation have now been satisfied, being the plaintiff has been clearly identified. She, despite not naming him, has now officially said on the stand that yes, I wrote this about Johnny Depp because of his abuse of power. But as I always like to remind everyone, with the law, all of the elements of each offense or cause of action must be satisfied individually. In the case of defamation, mere identification is not enough. We now have to prove that it was a false statement, and in Johnny's case, that it was made with actual malice. Camille's approach was brilliant. It was to list all of the witnesses who came out, such as Keenan Wyatt, Ben King, the property manager who flew all the way from England, Morgan Tremaine, Morgan Knight, Kate Moss, Beverly Leonard, all of these people who are not on Johnny's payroll, who clearly became aware of this false narrative that was destroying someone's life and decided to correct that, decided to intervene and share the truth. So this was brilliant because no matter what Amber says, she can insinuate that all of these people are lying and want fame all she wants. The jury saw the presentation of, for example, Mr. Morgan Knight. He had no interest in fame whatsoever. He was honest and entirely unassuming. He just wanted to do what was right. And again, this is on a human level of reading body language. It's instinctive. The same can be applied to Beverly Leonard. You know, you see her there sitting in her living room, completely dressed down. There was no indication that these people were putting their best foot forward, prepping themselves for their 15 minutes on TV. Isaac Baruch and how he started to weep for Johnny and for what he's been through was also brought up by Camille. Brilliant, again, to remind the jury how much Johnny's situation has affected those who know him, those who love him, those who have been friends with him for far longer than many of us have even been alive on this earth. Interestingly, Amber's response to that was, I relate to Isaac because him and I are the only ones who broke down on the stand or who cried on the stand. Except all of us wept with Isaac, but I don't recall any of us doing the same when Amber started to break down as she relayed her allegations. Her redirect was absolutely useless in my opinion. I don't think Rotten Born did anything other than elicit more anger out of Amber, because in all of her responses, even in redirect, even though it was now her own lawyer, it was pure vitriolic anger dripping out of her. And I don't think that that's going to help her much with the jury. And that's it for the defense rebuttal. Now, for closing arguments, the best way to describe closing statements is that they are a summation, a wrap-up, a summary of all of the evidence and the facts that have been presented to the jury. But the main goal of closing statements is to help the jury put everything together in their minds, to connect all the dots, to fill in any missing gaps, to remind them of really strong evidence, and to also remind them of the weaknesses of the other side. It's been 6 weeks. It's a long time. There's a lot of evidence for them to sift through. So this is a crucial time for both sides to make sure that the jury know everything they need to know before they retire for deliberations. They will have all of the evidence available to them during deliberations. They will not be rushed. Sometimes when they come back and inform the court that they could not arrive at a unanimous decision, a judge will direct them to go back and deliberate further. That doesn't always happen. In case you're wondering, a unanimous verdict is required in this instance for Johnny to be successful. So if one juror holds out, the case is lost. To conclude the closing statements, the lawyers tell the jury what they want from them. So in this instance, Johnny's side would say, at the conclusion of the trial and after all of the evidence that you have seen and heard, we ask you, members of the jury, to find that the defendant Amber Heard did in fact defame Johnny Depp and that she did so with actual malice. The jury instructions, as I mentioned, were discussed after the conclusion of the defense's rebuttal. Very briefly, they will not be allowed to make an adverse inference by virtue of Adam asserting client-attorney privilege. So Adam couldn't respond to most of the questions during his deposition because of attorney-client privilege. And this pertains to the counterclaim. So the judge will instruct the jury that relying on attorney-client privilege does not mean that they're hiding something and that the jury is not allowed to infer that they are hiding something. Rottenborn tried to fight against that, but it is the law. I found it quite strange that he was trying to get the judge to exclude that instruction, but she kept it in. Like I said earlier, I'm not actually done watching them discuss jury instructions, but I think this one in particular, the adverse inference, is a question that I've been getting quite often. So I hope that answers it. I might be joining a live stream for closing statements. I'll be providing commentary as well. So I'll let you know on social media if you follow me on which channel that will be. And I hope to see you there. Thank you so much again for all the support. We are at the final frontier. For many of us, this has been a personal fight because of personal experiences that align with Johnny's. I know that that's why I'm even on YouTube at all in any serious capacity with consistent uploads. It's because of this fight for men's rights, a fight to recognize that men can be and are victimized and abused by females. It is a reality. It's not just a celebrity show. It is certainly not the Johnny Depp show. And this can happen to anyone. It's not just restricted to celebrities. It's happened to people I know in my life. And that's why it's an important fight. It's not just for Johnny, it's for all men out there. And I'm sure Johnny feels the same way. Thank you all so much for the support over the past few years. And again, as I always like to sign off now, may we finally get justice for Johnny Depp and for all victims of abuse out there. Thank you. Take care. See you next time.